Hello my dear students. So we continue the lecture on sympathetic nervous system. In this lecture we describe about synthesis, storage and release on reuptake of adrenaline, right? What's going on? Synthesis, storage, release and reuptake of adrenaline. How to synthesize nerve ending adrenaline, how the vesicle store in the storage adrenaline, what are the different protein involved in the release of adrenaline, how to reuptake of adrenaline or noradrenaline, obviously, right? You know that some few terms about adrenaline. First is adrenaline is monoamine. That is first is monoamine. You know that monoamine is single amino acids. Monoamine is single amino acids. You know that amino acid is the characteristic feature is deuterions, and those deuterions for fusing to each other and make a protein chain. The long chain of amino acids called as protein. But this amino acid has no deuterions. That's why it's a wastage of protein. But body system or nature convert this wastage as a neurotransmitter, which is a messenger of your body system, and many monoamine in our body. Surprise that these monoamines are also known as catecholamines. What is also known as catecholamine? These mean those amino acid monoamines which has catechol ring. You know that catechol ring, there is another phenyl ring, and this one is, and this one. This is a catechol ring, and this monoamines, example is a monoamine catecholamine is adrenaline, noradrenaline, and of course dopamine, and your friend GABA. These all are monoamine. Important thing is that when monoamine synthesis, when monoamine release, this nerve ending again reuptake and recycle it. That's mean important thing is it's a first of all is a wastage. But our body system, this wastage converted as a neurotransmitter, and this neurotransmitter first synthesized in nerve ending, then released, then they have done their function, and then reuptake again and again recycle it. Okay. Important thing of synthesis, first step of synthesis, the source of synthesis of adrenaline is where? Of course, diet. Here is the GIT tract. This is the GIT tract, and you know that small intestine is a part of absorption system, and you have take protein. You just absorb protein, and in this protein we have desired amino acid known as tyrosine. This tyrosine amino acid easily cross blood-brain barrier, right? And this is the transporter over here in the nerve ending of the neurons, and this transporter is called as tyrosine transporter. What is called? Tyrosine transporter. TT means tyrosine transporter, like this. Tyrosine transporter. Got it? Okay. Then when tyrosine reach in where? Nerve ending. This tyrosine reach in the nerve ending, and this tyrosine convert into that's your friend DOPA. Okay, DOPA. And when tyrosine convert into DOPA with the presence of one of the enzyme responsible over here, and the name of this enzyme tyrosine hydroxylase. Okay, listen, is a DOPA. Okay, this tyrosine convert into DOPA with the presence of tyrosine hydroxylase, and this DOPA convert in, of course, dopamine. This DOPA convert into dopamine in the presence of one of the enzyme over here, and name of this enzyme is decarboxylase. What is the name of decarboxylase? Okay, listen. If this nerve ending only synthesized dopamine, so this nerve ending is as a dopaminergic neuron, right? When you further going to next step, again you made the adrenaline, noradrenaline, and etc. So you have this neuron become changed. Listen, be careful. Then this dopamine furtherly store in where? Vesicles. This dopamine is stored in where? Vesicle. Here is the channel dopamine transporter. What is known as this? Dopamine transporter. Listen very careful, because the many drugs work this pathways. Transporters, many drugs, pharmacological drugs, which block this transporter, this hydroxylases, this decarboxylases enzyme inhibition. Right, that means synthesis inhibitor, storage inhibitor, release inhibitor, reuptake inhibitor, the many pharmacological drugs, right? This dopamine transport, and dopamine easily stored in where? Vesicles. What is this? This is the vesicles. Okay, and this dopamine I will just draw is D. D for dopamine. You know that dopamine has a 5-type receptor, is a long story, but this dopamine when reach in vesicle, this dopamine convert into norepinephrine. This dopamine convert into norepinephrine in the presence of which enzyme? Beta hydroxylase. In the presence of beta hydroxylase, right? Okay, it's a dopamine convert into norepinephrine in the presence of beta hydroxylase enzyme. And when beta hydroxylase enzyme is responsible for dopamine convert to the norepinephrine, and norepinephrine further convert into epinephrine. That's very important. Understood? That's mean norepinephrine convert into epinephrine under the enzyme known as the enzyme. Let talk you later, because the many drugs track with these pathway. How? Okay, in the synthesis parameter, tyrosine transporter, dopamine synthesis, whenever if you left this dopamine in the inside of the vesicle, this neuron become dopaminergic. If you don't want norepinephrine convert into epinephrine, this neuronal tree, or we can say that this nerve ending is a norenergic neurons. When you convert the norepinephrine to epinephrine, this neuron nerve ending is called as adrenergic neurons. Okay, this norepinephrine and epinephrine in where? In the vesicle. So this means I will just draw, this is dopamine, this is dopamine, and in blue marker I will show that here is, what is this? This is adenergine, yeah, epinephrine. Okay, so this is a dopamine, this is a epinephrine in the vesicle in different part, in this vesicle in different part. Yes, right. This dopamine also is released, and this epinephrine is also released. So we talk about epinephrine or adrenaline. So then we focus on adrenaline, right? So release of epinephrine, second storage is over. Release of epinephrine. You know that the previous history of acetylcholine, when we talk about acetylcholine in the previous lecture, one of the protein over here always releasing of monoamine. So require what? External stimuli. So external stimuli, that means external stimuli is always voltage. So here is the channel, that is sodium channel. Here is the channel, that is, here is the channel, that is calcium channel, and you know that very leaky channel over here, that is potassium channel. Okay, here is the potassium channel. All detail of this channel, how this channel work on the release of, you know that here is the synaptobarin, and here is the syntaxin protein, already in lecture related acetylcholine. Okay, whenever sodium is in flux, release of epinephrine from here, and this calcium intake or influx of calcium over here, this calcium is bound on this pole system, and when bind this pole system, this pole become open, fusing with synaptobarin to syntaxin is fused to each other, and epinephrine slightly cross the cell membrane, not cell membrane, neuronal cell membrane, not nerve ending, right? This is a release of, so synthesis, storage and release of norepinephrine is over. Now, you know that when we talk about dopamine, we talk about epinephrine, we talk about acetylcholine, all monoamines are reuptake back, right? Listen very careful over here. When norepinephrine release from syntaxin to synaptobarin, this release pattern is very important. Why? Because when dopamine is released, one of the engulf enzyme over here, engulfing enzyme means those enzyme which engulf the dopamine. We can say that this enzyme is also known as dopamine eater. Those enzyme which destroy the dopamine. You know that what is the name of this enzyme? This enzyme is known as MAO. Have you heard of the MAO?
Yes.
Monoamine oxidase. And where is the synthesis of monoamine oxidase enzyme? Of course, don't forget, it is the secret from where? Mitochondria. Where? Mitochondria. Mitochondria of the neuronal cell secrete one of the eater enzyme, that is known MAO. Same thing, this is dopamine, you know that this is dopamine, this is epinephrine. Dopamine eat by MAO and epinephrine eat by also MAO. Understood? Yes? Very nice. That's mean, what is the difference between MAO whenever we eat dopamine, whenever we eat epinephrine? The difference between them, because when MAO eat dopamine or MAO destroy dopamine with the help of MAO-A enzyme. And whenever we talk about epinephrine, which enzyme responsible for eating? MAO-B. So MAO-A and MAO-B are enzymes from mitochondria. What is the role of MAO-A? MAO-A is an eater for dopamine, MAO-B is the eater for epinephrine. Okay, that's mean if you really want save the dopamine, suppose this dopamine is the lower activity in the nerve ending due to the overexpression of MAO. What happened? Dopamine doesn't synthesize, doesn't vesicle storage and doesn't release. Okay, whenever dopamine is not released, your motor activity become loose, right? Whenever motor activity become loose, you need to more synthesize of dopamine, right? Suppose whenever in the patient, whenever dopamine activity in the overexpress in the nerve ending, whenever oversynthesis of dopamine, whenever over release of dopamine from vesicle, what you do? You do MAO agonist. Any drug which agonist the action of MAO. Whenever MAO agonist, this dopamine become destroy. Or whenever dopamine is under suppressed, you have to be MAO antagonist. Listen, be careful. Overexpression of dopamine or epinephrine in your vesicles, over release of the vesicle, one strategy of treatment to be MAO inhibitor. Understood?
Yes.
That's mean very important thing is that MAO is the enzyme which are responsible for dopamine and epinephrine eater, right? Okay. Another thing is that this is the inside of the nerve ending. This phenomenon is inside of nerve ending. When this nerve ending connect with another nerve ending, okay, I will just put this diagram and fused with another nerve ending, right? Okay. Are you understanding this?
Yes, sir.
Or I teach myself only? Okay, this is the vesicle. Okay, here is this is the nerve ending from one neurons, and here is the another postsynaptic neuron, right? Whenever you know that here the fuse of norepinephrine here, okay, you know that the vesicle has dopamine, here is the dopamine, and vesicle has epinephrine. This is epinephrine, this is the dopamine, this is the epinephrine, right? Here when dopamine is released, when epinephrine is released, when dopamine is released, the release inhibitor is MAO A, right? And the release inhibitor in the MAO B. Okay, understood? Whenever overexpression of MAO A, this release pattern become impaired, right? So we need to try a medication or pharmacological drugs which inhibit the MAO A as well as MAO B, and you know that we have this, okay, in the especially the relevance of Parkinson disorder. We are trying to be like antipsychotic drugs, anti-anxiolytic drugs which have the MAO inhibitor, especially depression case. Don't forget this. Depression, antidepressant drugs like MAO inhibitor and MAO B inhibitor, right? Okay, in Parkinson MAO B inhibitor, and in depression MAO B inhibitor. Okay, whenever release of norepinephrine to another neuron, suppose this epinephrine or norepinephrine release from here and work through this and work to post junctional, or we can say that post ganglionic neuronal, and this norepinephrine work over here and reuptake back. This epinephrine release work to post junctional neuron and again reuptake back. That is very important. That's mean suppose here the ball which thrown out then pull back, thrown out, pull back, right? That's mean first of all synthesis of ball means epinephrine or dopamine. Whenever synthesis of ball, just ball become mature, this ball become released, thrown out, function, then made a sixer, then pull back. That is very important. Here the all catecholamines do these activities. Understood? Whenever norepinephrine release, then reuptake. Epinephrine release, reuptake. Dopamine release, reuptake back. Same thing in GABA. Okay. So whenever norepinephrine reuptake mechanism by first method is called direct reuptake mechanism. Okay, direct reuptake mechanism. And second mechanism of reuptake of norepinephrine as well as epinephrine, that is clathrine reuptake dependent mechanism. Clathrine dependent reuptake mechanism. Both case as well as epinephrine, norepinephrine and dopamine. Okay, whenever direct reuptake means norepinephrine work to the receptor. Suppose this is norepinephrine and here is the receptor for post junctional neuron is alpha 1, here is the beta 1, here is the alpha 2, here is the beta 2. So norepinephrine and epinephrine work to the receptor and pull back by direct reuptake mechanism, by clathrine dependent mechanism. Clathrine dependent is a very important, because the clathrine dependent mechanism is also known as indirect mechanism of reuptake. What is this? Indirect reuptake mechanism, right? Okay, that's mean direct reuptake mechanism and indirect reuptake mechanism is a very important, because clathrine is the protein, and clathrine is a protein. Whenever you want to reuptake back of norepinephrine, this protein is very helpful, and many companion examiner asked you which protein is responsible for reuptake of monoamines or catecholamines. Only clathrine, right? Okay, this is a this is the reuptake mechanism of epinephrine and adrenaline. Listen, if you talk about epinephrine, this neuron is adrenergic. If you talk about dopamine, this is, yes please, this neuron is dopaminergic. Okay, listen, very important thing. When you know that enemies of epinephrine and dopamine is a very important. You know why? When epinephrine release from here and function to their neighboring neuron by releasing pattern, you know, when norepinephrine reuptake, one of the enzyme responsible for reuptake inhibitor naturally, physiologically, you know that's mean this system is very important. When epinephrine is a ball, when thrown out, when you coming pull back, some enemies over here which break the pooling of your ball, understood, which destroy the pooling of your ball. That's mean epinephrine release, norepinephrine release, they could not be pull out because one of the enzyme which block reuptake mechanism. And what is the name of this enzyme? Yes please, this is the enzyme is your friend, COMT, COMT, catechol O-methyl transferases. What is the name of this? Catechol O-methyl transferases. This is the enzyme which are responsible for destruction of reuptake inhibitor. Understood? Or many drugs which are responsible for blocking the reuptake, blocking the storage, blocking the synthesis, you know that. But you know the previous diagram, dopamine store over here, one of the very important drug, however clinically not used at the right time, but still many company in exam ask about the drug, those drugs which inhibit the transport of dopamine in the vesicle site. And the name of drug, yes please, those drugs which block this transporter. Which transporter? Dopamine transporter. Because dopamine doesn't store in the vesicle. The drug is name is, you know that, something called Reuptake serpentina.
Yes.
Reuptake serpentina, and the constituents of Reuptake serpentina is, yes, reserpine. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Reserpine is the antihypertensive drugs. Antihypertensive drugs clinically not used because of very highly toxic molecules, but still till date this drug is very important for all companion exam, because the reserpine is the only drug which directly block on dopamine transporter by this one, VMAT. Okay, वेसिमिकल मैट एनालिसिस के थ्रू हम पता कर सकते हैं. Okay, that's mean VMAT inhibitor, reserpine. Okay, another drug also introduced over here, like many other drugs, like in the Parkinson disease you have to be levodopa, carbidopa, procyclidine, you have the salicylic gene, and there is like your friend, any drugs which block dopamine as well as epinephrine synthesis inhibitor, release inhibitor and reuptake inhibitor. Single drug which done three functions: synthesis inhibitor, release and reuptake inhibitor. Don't forget this is also drug is an antiviral. This drug is antiviral activity, sorry, antifungal activity. This drug is also antifungal activity, and this drug name is amantadine. Amantadine is a drug which synthesis inhibitor, release inhibitor and reuptake inhibitor, and virtually used in Parkinson disorder. Okay, we continue on the lecture on different pharmacological drugs which are acting on different transporter system with associated with the different systems side effect. Okay, so need a break over here.